Hey there, fellow deep divers. Ready to explore something a little different today?
Different is our middle name. What you got?
Well, we're diving into the world of prison literature,
Okay, I'm listening.
but with a poetry slam twist.
Whoa, now that's a combo I wasn't expecting.
Right.
So where are we getting this interesting idea from?
Well, it's from this article. It's called The Scandalous Truth About Prison and Why It Will Take Your Breath Away.
Seriously.
I know, right?
Who comes up with these titles?
But hey, it got our attention.
Buddha.
And the article basically argues that we can learn a lot from what prisoners read,
Okay.
and that these insights can actually help us improve our poetry slam skills.
Now that's a connection I wouldn't have made on my own.
I know, me neither. But it's actually pretty fascinating when you think about it. How people in such extreme circumstances find comfort and escape through literature.
Right, like what kind of books do they turn to when they're,
Exactly.
stuck behind bars?
And, we always kind of imagine prisoners lost in the pages of Dostoevsky, right?
Yeah, deep in thought, pondering the meaning of life.
But this article paints a different picture.
Oh, really?
It turns out escapism is a huge factor in their reading choices. Like genre fiction, especially thrillers, are super popular.
Interesting. So instead of heavy philosophical stuff,
Yeah.
they're more likely to be reading a Sebastian Fitzek novel just to escape their reality for a bit.
Exactly. And the article actually mentions that Fitzek's Amokspiel was borrowed like 86 times at Dortmund Correctional Facility.
Wow, 86 times. That's a lot of escapes.
Right. I mean, it makes sense, though. When you're physically confined, your mind craves a way out, even if it's just through a fictional thriller.
Totally. It's like freedom through words.
And speaking of unexpected reading material, the article also highlights the popularity of comics in prisons, specifically Donald Duck.
Donald Duck. Seriously.
I know, right? I was surprised, too. But when you think about it, it kind of makes sense.
How so?
Well, prisoners, especially those serving long sentences, they're stripped of their autonomy. They're constantly facing rules and restrictions.
Sure, yeah.
So they might relate to Donald's outbursts, his chaotic energy, his constant frustration. It's almost like a form of rebellion.
Oh, I see. Like a safe way to tap into those feelings of anger and frustration that they can't really express directly.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And, the article also mentions the significance of religious texts in prisons, specifically the Quran.
Right. Providing a sense of community and hope, especially in an environment where those things might be lacking.
Totally. It's a reminder that even in the most isolating of circumstances, people need something to believe in, something to connect with. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about juvenile detention.
Okay.
I imagine the reading experience is quite different there, like required reading lists and stuff.
Yeah, you're right. The article mentions books like Chick and The Wave being used in juvenile detention. But these books, while they're great in their own right, they might not always resonate with young people who are going through their own unique challenges.
Right. If your world already feels super limited, a coming-of-age story or a social commentary might not be top of mind.
Yeah, but there's always that chance of a powerful moment of self-recognition.
Right. Yeah.
Like a character struggle, a specific theme. It could really trigger a shift in perspective, especially for young people who are figuring out their identity and trying to make sense of their situation.
Right. It's like a glimmer of hope, a reminder that they're not alone in what they're going through.
Exactly.
And that actually brings us to a broader theme that the article touches upon. Reading as a form of resistance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's this really powerful quote in the article, "You have my body, but you'll never have my mind."
Wow, that's powerful. It really highlights how even in prison reading can be an act of defiance.
Right. It's a way to maintain a sense of self and mental freedom, even when you're physically confined. And, it's not just prisoners who experience this kind of confinement. We all face limitations in our lives, right? Whether it's deadlines, societal expectations, or those darn creative blocks that just seem to appear at the worst possible times.
Yeah, for sure. We can all relate to feeling trapped, needing an escape.
And that's where this deep dive takes a super unexpected turn.
Oh, where are we going now?
Well, according to the article, we can learn a lot from prison reading habits
Okay.
and apply those insights to, wait for it, poetry slam.
Poetry slam to learn.
Prison and poetry. That's a
Right.
wild connection.
Right. It's not exactly the first pairing that comes to mind.
But I'm curious.
Me too. So the article lays out 2 specific tips inspired by prison reading habits.
Okay, let's hear them.
So tip number 1 is write like a prisoner on the run.
Ooh, that sounds intense.
Right.
What does that even mean?
Well, imagine like a prisoner frantically scribbling on a scrap of toilet paper as the guards are closing in.
Okay, I get the imagery,
Yeah.
but how do we actually apply that to poetry slam? Well, it's about infusing your poetry with a sense of urgency.
Okay.
Like every word counts, every line is a step closer to freedom. Imagine a poem that starts with the speaker describing the cold, hard walls of a cell, the claustrophobic air, the clanging bars.
I'm listening.
And then through the power of metaphor, it's revealed that the cell isn't actually a literal cell.
Ooh, I see. It's a metaphor for like their internal struggles, their emotional confinement.
Exactly. And then the poem becomes about breaking free from those constraints, whether they're physical or emotional.
So it's about using the imagery of prison to explore deeper metaphorical prisons.
Precisely.
And that sense of urgency, that desire for escape is what drives the poem forward.
Exactly. And that's what you want to bring to the slam stage, right? That raw energy, that passion. Okay, tip number 2. This one is even more out there.
Okay, I'm ready. Hit me with it.
Be the Donald Duck of poetry slam.
Wait, Donald Duck.
I know,
You're
right?
the one who's always like quacking and getting into trouble.
The one and only. But before you write it off as completely bonkers, hear me out.
Okay, I'm listening.
Donald Duck is all about raw, unfiltered emotion.
That's true, I guess. He's got a lot of feelings.
Right.
Anger, frustration, vulnerability, and just pure chaos.
Exactly. And that's what we want to bring to the slam stage, that emotional honesty. You know, that willingness to express those primal, sometimes messy feelings that we often try to hide.
So it's not about being perfectly polished and composed.
Nope.
It's about embracing the chaos, the tantrums, the moments when things fall apart.
Embrace the Donald within. I never thought I'd say those words.
Yeah.
But hey, I'm willing to try it.
I mean, think about it. Have you ever connected with someone's art because it felt so real, so raw, so vulnerable, even if it was a little rough around the edges?
Yeah, totally.
That's the energy we're talking about.
Right. It's about connecting with the audience on a gut level. Letting them see your true self, even the messy parts.
And Poetry Slam is the perfect space for that, right?
Totally. It's not about perfection. It's about connection. It's about sharing our stories, even the messy ones, and realizing that we're not alone in our experiences.
Well said.
So we started with prison libraries, then we explored the power of escapism, and somehow we ended up embracing our inner Donald Duck. It's been a wild ride.
I know, right?
But seriously, what's the takeaway here? What have we learned?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that inspiration can come from the most unexpected places.
Totally. Like, who'd have thought that prison literature could teach us about poetry slam?
Right. And by looking at how people cope in such extreme circumstances, we gain insights into human nature, resilience, and the power of creativity to overcome limitations.
It's like those limitations become fuel for creative expression.
Exactly.
And, you know, this whole deep dive has got me thinking about the prisons we build for ourselves. Like, you know, those limiting beliefs, those fears that keep us from really expressing ourselves.
Yeah, these internal barriers that hold us back.
Exactly. But what if we approach those limitations with the same spirit of escape that we see in prison literature?
Ooh, I like that. Like, how can we break free from those self-imposed constraints?
And maybe channel a little bit of that Donald Duck energy.
Uh-huh. A little creative chaos never hurt anyone.
Right. So the article actually recommends a book called Poetry Master to help you tap into that creative power.
Sounds interesting.
But honestly, I think the real takeaway here is to find what works for you, you know?
Right, find your own path.
It could be a book, a mentor, a community, or even a flock of angry ducks.
Yeah.
Whatever sparks that fire in you, whatever helps you break free from those limitations and express your unique voice.
It's all about empowering yourself to be creative.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself on a Poetry Slam stage someday, sharing your story with the world.
The stage is waiting.
So go out there, find your words, and set yourself free. And hey, even Donald Duck has a story to tell.
That he does.
Until next time, keep diving deep, keep exploring, and never be afraid to unleash a little creative mayhem.
Keep those minds open and perspectives shifting.
Peace out.